Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. And before we get started with this week's episode, I want to remind everybody that if you want to check out everything from the Shadows podcast, just go to our website. From there, you can hit all the links to all of our social media, find our store, buy a t-shirt, buy a hat. You can find the contact button. You can send me an email, especially if you've got an experience or something you want to share. Maybe come on the show and tell a story. If you want to get a hold of me directly, outside of that, you can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram, all of our Facebook pages. Find us on Messenger. And I don't know how many people know, but for the people that will just listen on Apple and Spotify and wherever else, but we've been doing videos for a couple years now. So if you guys want to see, like, what's going on, our guests, lots of times we put up pictures, some video and stuff, go check us out, go subscribe and check us out on YouTube. It's might be a little bit different experience for you. Then again, you might watch me for 30 seconds and be like, I'd rather just listen to him than actually see him. So with that being said, we are welcoming to the show somebody ever since I've been told about him a couple weeks ago. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to get this guy on. CJ, who is Kyle's father from a couple weeks ago, who came on and shared some of his paranormal experiences. So CJ, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and then your professional background, and then we'll just get into like where your paranormal journey started.
Sure. Well, like you said, my name is CJ. My Indian name is Mato Otas, many bears. I'm very much involved in the native culture, as I'm a Chippewa Indian from the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation. I'm currently living with my wife, who is a full-blood Lakota, on the Fort Berthold Reservation, which is Newtown, North Dakota, Mandana Ricker, Ahidatsa. So I got friends, family, all through the Midwest, and some out on the West Coast, some out on the East. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So your Chippewa name is Many Bears.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
what does that signify? What does that mean?
Well, it's when you ask to be named, you will go to what you guys would probably know as a medicine man.
Mm-hmm.
We just call them, great prayer people, Sundance leaders. We pretty much know who those people are. They're usually elders. There's some that have progressed through their lives since they were little kids, and they're able to do that. But when they name you, that is your name. That is what you introduce yourself as, and that's how it goes. And it's basically offering that person. For me, it was tobacco, of course, because tobacco is such a big culture thing with us. It's in our prayers. It's everything we do, and yes, it can be bad for you too. But we have different things that we do for those kind of things. Anyway. When I offered the man tobacco, we had a ceremony, a naming ceremony. Kyle was named Sacred Mountain. I was named Many Bears. And my daughter just recently got named. And you can get named from other tribes, too. And that's pretty much what happens. But, and a lot of it is just ceremony, knowing the people, knowing the ways. I don't know it all. Like you said something interesting earlier that you're an infant. I'm an infant in these ways. And there's friends of mine that have brought me along that are absolutely my brothers and sisters. So it's really good to, that I was able to be kind of brought along in that way. And I'll kind of explain that as I go along from the beginning of my story. So, yeah.
Now, is there like a significance though to the Many Bears? Like, is that like, is it one of those ceremonies where they see something and that is that is tied to you or tied to your spirit?
It can be, yeah, things that they've seen. I've had friends that were fasting on a mountain and, all of a sudden a star would come across. and an elder down the hill would put that into a name for that individual. So, I mean, that can happen. They could dream about it. They can pray about it. You pray about it. It's kind of a group thing. And then they decide what your name is going to be. And, I would like to think, the bear is a healer in our ways. In the Dakota, it's known pretty much as a healer, pretty much a loner. There's different traits of animals that fit different people. So they decided to name me many bears. It's not because I'm a mean guy or I act like 20 bears, but it's like my son, Sacred Mountain. You've seen how tall he is.
Yeah, I just figured they're like, man, this dude's blocking out the sun. We're just going to call him Sacred.
So he got Sacred Mountain. Yeah, it just kind of goes that way. But when we're in ceremony, we use our names, or if we're doing something like this, we'll introduce ourselves that way. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. So now, and then are you still active in law enforcement, or you were in law enforcement?
I was in law enforcement about 26 years because I started as a dispatcher jailer, put myself through the academy, and this is all in North Dakota. I became a deputy sheriff, worked my way up through the ranks that was probably about 96 to about 2003. Then I became what is known as a BCI agent, which is North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation. I was a special agent. My forte was undercover narcotics. I worked a ton of dope on the eastern end of the state in Grand Forks, but pretty much all over the state of North Dakota. And, I kind of went from the patrol part, which I had a lot of experiences, and then some as an agent too, that we can get into. But yeah, when I was on patrol, working all hours of the night in a little town called Duncath, where San Haven is. Now, Ghost Adventure, Zach and those guys went up and did San Haven, and I think it's season 14 or 16, but it's on there. That is known as San Haven. It was a tuberculosis center for years. Mm-hmm. They made clothes there. They had people that had this deformity when they were born. Now, forgive me because I don't know the medical term, but back in those days, they called them waterheads. They were
like, is it encephalitis or something like that?
It just makes their heads huge and they can't move.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much bedridden. So the death, and I mean, just with tuberculosis alone, that wiped out a lot of people. And then, of course, when they had the hospital and stuff, and I mean, it was just a building that saw a lot of death. Now, the people that I knew that worked there were great people, but I've heard stories about people that weren't so great there, that had a habit of maybe, I don't want to put abusing, beating them, but there were some things that they did that were a little questionable, that they'd probably get in trouble for today. But it's been around. Right now they're tearing it down because I've been there when a person died, fell down the elevator shaft. On Ghost Adventures, they were really concentrating on the elevator shaft, but it turned out to be a drip of water hitting a bottle. Well, I could have told them that. I was one of the guys that pulled the body out of and I don't want to give names to the family because I'm still pretty close to those people, and I don't want to cause anything. But anyway, the death of it was, and it's funny, on a lot of ghost shows, they go to these sanatoriums that were made for tuberculosis. I believe Penhurst was like that. Some of the bigger ones, even smaller ones, they're spooky as hell, man. But when I finally got to see this place, it was everything was out. It was pretty much doomed then. We'd have a lot of kids go up there and party and spray paint their name. My name is spray painted on it. So I was trying to find that picture. So it was kind of a rite of passage. Everybody go up there and graffiti it. I will say that it was a great facility at one time. It had its own zip code. They grew their own food. They had their own power plant. A lot of our elders now used to work there. But in that building, the way that it's built, they had an elevator that was pretty much in the middle of the building, and it would go all the way down to the tunnel. Well, there were tunnels, but the main tunnel was when you come off that elevator and there's no elevator in there anymore. It just shaft. But you would get off in the tunnel and you'd walk about 35 steps, and to the left was the morgue. Now, it is private property, so me being a cop and interested in what you're interested in, day one, I was like, got to go check this place out. Who's going to take me for trespassing? I'm a cop. Hey.
Somebody called and said, "Hey, look, you need." Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of went through by myself, and it was a little twitchy. How you get that hair standing up and this and that. But I found the morgue. It still had the refrigeration rails in there. And talking to the sheriff that I worked for, Sheriff Sims, he was telling me at one time, because I believe he worked up there too, there were still shelves in the morgue room. And he said that they took out samples in glass containers of brains, tumors, you name it. It was, he said there were 2 semis that were just loaded with x-rays, and that there was a full semi loaded with these parts. I'm assuming they probably took him and threw him in an incinerator, just through my experience being an agent. But I mean, so you have all that residue that's in there. People dying, people screaming. Yeah, there were good times in there. It was a beautiful place. It really was. But what's left now, I had to laugh when I watched, Aaron, Zach, and those guys go through there. I said, man. And when they came out, they said, yeah, that's no joke. And I was like, yeah, it's not a joke at all, man. So, they kind of went down, played in the tunnels, but that's pretty much all that was left at that time for me to see was the morgue room. Okay. Fast forward a little bit. I'm a deputy. My sheriff called me and said, hey, we had an assault last night that happened, and I think it happened up at San Haven. Well, he's 35 miles away in a county seat. So he's like, hey, could you go up there and check for evidence and just look around? I said, sure. Well, knowing what I was getting myself into, and I'm going to use my bro's name because he went with me. We call him Big Beaner, but his name is Lorne Bumgardner. And he's about 6'8", probably about 400 pounds. He's like Kyle's, yeah. I mean, maybe that was Kyle's dad. I don't know. But yeah, they're huge. They're huge. So, and I'm not going to lie, I was kind of freaked out. I picked him up in my cop car and I said, hey, I need you to, we pulled up there and there was a back door. I opened the door and there's stairs that go down into the tunnel. Okay. When you open that door, sunlight can get through to that. But once you're down in there, you need a flashlight. So okay. I said, just hold this door open for me, man. Hold it open. So I went down there thinking I'm all cool, this and that. And I found a pipe with some hair on it. I was like, that looks like evidence to me. Boop, threw it in. Got down maybe about 60 steps down into it, had my light on. And it sounded like somebody blew a shotgun off about, I don't even know, man. It was so loud. It scared the shit out of me. I drew my weapon. I threw my light on. But I could see in front of me, but I was thinking, oh, shit, when I turn around, I can't see nothing. I don't know what's behind me, And all of a sudden, the door goes, and I'm like, oh, Beaner left me, man. He left me. So I'm like backing myself out with the gun and flashlight. And I get to the top, and he's like, did you effing hear that? And I was like, yeah, I was there. Thanks for closing the door on me. And yeah, it was really, man, I've never heard anything like that. It was like somebody blew a bomb off down there. Nobody's in there. Nobody hangs out in that place. It's totally dark. I didn't get hit with a bullet, but I'll tell you what, it would sound like if somebody lit a 12 gauge off in your room right there.
Wow.
So that freaked me out. We went down. I told my sheriff everything that pretty much happened. I told my sheriff because he was a white guy from Arkansas, and God rest his soul. He's married to a Chippewa lady that lives up there who is very sacred, very much into the ways, and so he kind of believes in that stuff too. So when I would come tell him these experiences, he's like, "Oh, okay, and yeah, man, it was pretty crazy. That was that story. The next experience I had was in the same town of Duncath. And again, that's where those guys did their show in Dunseith. Dunseith, for some reason, it used to be quite a town, but through the years, the railroad's gone. It just kind of died out. But there was a high school there that was the original high school. I knew nothing about it. Keep in mind, I wasn't from Dunseith. I was from Belcourt. So I was learning history there, people, stuff like that. And it's only about 20 miles away from each other. But we grew up over here. We didn't have cell phones and all the stuff we have today. So it was kind of like a separate. Everybody just kind of stayed their own way. But anyway, the original high school in Dunseith had a pool in it. One of the first calls we got was a girl drowned. And I couldn't remember. I was thinking because that's a long time ago, man. I know that they filled in the pool. It's not there anymore, but I don't know if that was the reason. Maybe they closed the pool, is that she passed. I couldn't really remember. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of death in my life, so I got to go through my cards and remember it. But I mean, it was an older school, and a lot of my friends have gone there. And so there I am I'm going to say at least 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night. Nothing is going on. I am bored. I'm in my patrol unit. I pull up by the school to watch it. And as I drive by the front door, nothing there. I go to the second door, and down the hallway where the light was, this girl with long hair peeked out and went like that. I went out of frame, there she was, boom, gone. And I was like, did I just see that? And it was enough that I called into the office and I said, hey, Rala 4599, my number. I said, I'm going to be out at the school checking to see, I think there's kids in here. So call down the locksmith guy, the guy with the lock. So he came down, we went through the whole damn school. Well, he kind of mentioned to me that school's haunted. So I was like, okay, that's new to me. And kind of bugged me all night. The next day I told everybody about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, man, there's been people that have died in there. They've had wakes in there, funerals. The gym lights would come on. Just all kinds of little things like that. And my nieces told me that, too. They were going to school there at that time. They were freaked out about it. Nobody liked to be the last person out of the gym because it got to where they would be at the end to go out and it would come back on. It was just freaky stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, this is what I saw. And they're like, yeah, there was a girl that died on a trampoline in the gym that broke her neck. Well, it happened to be a cop's sister at that time, the way I understood it. So I was like, okay, well, that, I guess paranormally, that kind of makes sense, 3 weeks later, my other deputy's driving along, sees the same thing at the same time in the morning. And that's when he saw the same thing. Called out everybody when it's in the logs. It's in there. He went through, nothing in there. Yeah, I mean, it was just very.
So you wonder if
disturbing.
You wonder if the girl was looking out to see if it was her brother.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
if he was.
That's where I was kind of wondering about. That's when I started learning a long time ago about residual hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe that's just, and you're right. I mean, why would she do that every day? But it could be looking for her brother, looking if whatever it is.
Maybe she sees the patrol car as like, oh, is that my brother? Or is that my...
Never even thought about that. Never even thought about it. But there's no right or wrong answer.
No. Because it could be the residual haunting. Yeah, she would do that every day or whatever, no matter who was going by. To me, the odds of that being the time you guys are driving by would be astronomical, But the fact that if it was an intelligent haunting and she died tragically and was scared, didn't know what was going on, and knew that her, maybe my brother is coming to get me, or I can get a hold of him, and then looked out and saw that it wasn't her brother. But golly, I've never heard of a school just a regular small school having that much tragedy. Outside of a big fire or a tornado, you know what I'm saying? Just average everyday stuff, people die. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And, when you're by yourself and you see that, you automatically question your sanity. Is it because I'm tired? Is it because, no, it happened that way. And then I didn't feel crazy after my buddy saw it. It was almost a relief in some ways because I believe in that, which is probably a whole nother show, but and really, that, and I think too, thinking through the years and talking to my friends about it, other cops, is that, we're in such a rural area. There's old abandoned homes that people don't tear down on their property. Man, you would have a ghost hunt and a half if you ever want to come out, because I'm in Ghost Patrol with the group that we put together with cops, and we haven't done anything yet, but we're getting ready to try to do some stuff here. So a shout out to Ori the cop, Ori Gouge, great friend of mine, and he's the one that got me into it here. But anyway, moving on with that, there was a place down by, these are the ones that really stick out with me. There was a place down in Roulette, which was the bottom of the county, and it was a very rural farming area. And they always told me about Island Lake. And I was like, and I've heard about that before I even was on the road. And I was like, well, what is it? They're like, man, there's a bunch of like Hutterites that live down there, and it's really creepy, and they see things down there. And I was like, shit, I don't even want to go down there. In fact, I don't think I ever did really go all the way through there in my career, but I'd skirt by it, So I remember I was in Roulette. It was late at night, foggy, really foggy. And I listened to Art Bell. We all did. Everybody that was on duty was listening to Art Bell all night long. Of course, George Norrie when he took over. That was our thing. And then we'd switch over on a frequency and talk crap to each other. Anyway, it was
that's all. That, by the way, that's probably the coolest thing I've heard, is that you guys all listened to that and then got off the main radio and just talked about. That's pretty cool.
And I've had a couple cops up by St. John, right on the Canadian border, see lights up there. I've never seen them, but it really freaked the cop up there, and I'm very close with that guy. But, we were kind of like, did he really see it? It could be airplanes. It could be CBP. Who knows? But it freaked him out. But as I was leaving Roulette heading out, and it was very foggy, they were talking about these apparitions and whatever, and I'm just cruising along, and it was foggy, and I came up around this corner, and it looked like a lady in a dress, like maybe even an angel that was about 12 feet tall, that was outlined in the fog right on the side of the road. Like as soon as my light hit it, I was like, whoa. And I kind of jumped because what was that? And I'll tell you what, I stepped on it after that, man. I drove my ass 100 miles an hour. I didn't turn around to look at it, but it was in that area. And was it just an anomaly? Maybe. But why at that time, why was it like that? And it was like if you drew out something completely white into the fog with a little outline, you could make it out. Just crazy stuff. The house I lived in Duncath as a deputy, the door used to open on itself all the time. It would slam if I was in the front room. I never let it bother me because I'm a cop, I'm tough. And but it scared me. Then I had the sheriff's wife come over and do like a little ceremony in there and she told me what it was. She told me it was an individual that was buried under my house that was basically wanting to cross over. Okay, now this lady, she's an elder. She doesn't know our talk about things, but that's the verbiage that she used. And again, it's like 1999. So, that's what she used, like, hey, he just wanted to go across and I helped him, about 2 weeks before she came over, my brother-in-law was in the house and we were having some beers and he looked out the window and that guy's face was in the window and it scared the shit out of him. He left and he's a big guy, it scared him. And I was like, well, there's got to be something to this. It's getting worse. And so I came, she calmed it down. I remember looking back while she was inside and the windows were vibrating. You could see the windows vibrating. Wow. She's a very powerful woman. As a matter of fact, I've seen some of her medicine and some of the things she does, and it's just amazing. She's a very prayerful woman, when it comes to that. So, And this is just my experiences. If a lot of people get on from up there and see this, they'll probably share a million experiences that they've had. Because we always had a bad habit of parking in the middle of a parking lot when it was in the middle of the night on a dead night, and there'd be 6 cops there, and we'd all tell ghost stories, and then they'd all leave me in town by myself. And I was like, you bastards, And I mean, and a lot of it was about the little people. In our culture, we believe in ruggaroos, and we believe in the little people. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a friend of mine up there. His mom and his 3 sisters died in a car accident. He had told me that he was going home one night and saw little people down playing in the pond, like glowing. They glow, little things, There's another thing called the St. Anne's fire. It's basically a ball of gas, but have you seen like the swamp gas?
Yeah.
People mistake as a ball.
Yeah.
Well, back then I had one of my best friends. They were telling him, don't go down to the lake in Belcourt. Don't go down there. They had a cabin down there, and it was very isolated. And as he was walking down, there was a little girl in a dress playing down at the side, and he freaked him out. And I asked him, I said, well, what did you do? He said, I just was in awe. That little girl turned around and said, go home, Curtis, go home. And I was like, man. And then there was his sister was down there with her boyfriend, and a ball of that light came at him. Now, they called it St. Anne's fire. I tried to look it up with our priests up there just to see, and I got some cool stuff that I wrote down a long time ago, history involving possession, involving different things. I have all my notes for that, but that's probably a different show. But yeah, the Ruggaroos are basically a half dog, half man, the hooved man that we've all heard with the cloven hooves that goes into the bar and dances around, and they look, and it's, the cloven. I've heard all those up there. But the Ruggaroo story is, during Lent, you don't play cards, you don't drink, you don't do anything that's bad because the devil will get you. And we're pretty superstitious up there. So anyway, basically, I have heard about the Ruggaroos, and if you hit them with a broom, they'll turn into a full dog and take off. So it's kind of like the shapeshifter / I don't know, skinwalkers maybe, but we don't have skinwalkers. That's more Navajo. That's more Dene down south. Not to say that wouldn't happen here, but it was really weird. I was like, does anybody else have Ruggaroos? I'm thinking for a few years. And I happened to hit on that, was it swamp people that are way down south catching alligators?
Yeah.
And the one guy was down there on his boat, and he was like, yeah, it could have been a Ruggaroo. I was like,
yeah.
What?
That's
well, the part French up there. They're French down there.
Yeah,
so they must have the same, superstition that we do.
Now, I've never heard that if you hit it with a broom, because it seems to me like encounters with these things are so intense and scary. Like, unless you got a broom in your hand, I don't know that you know what I'm saying? Like,
that was from very elder people that lived back then. But there was a history there up in that way with priests and how things went down. We could go back and talk about that, or I could move on and we can just keep going.
Well, no, I would like to hear more about that. I would like to hear more about how that is in your cult. I mean, because that is it has to be the French part. And like, so how did that kind of join with your culture then?
Well, that's because we're part French up there. And the whole thing is that the Lakota, the 3 tribes over here, on the western end of the state where Sakakawea was, that took Lewis and Clark their way, we were up at the top with the French and guns. So we pretty much, things kind of happened and the Lakota, Dakota, the Sioux Nation moved out into the middle of the plains. These guys were already here, the Arikarahidots and Mandan, 3 tribes. And we just kind of took over the woods in the top of the United States, just kind of took that over right on the Canadian line. But it was all French. Now we had, I'm part French. And And my grandpa could speak like 4 different languages, Cree, French, all this stuff. So if you didn't want us to know what he was talking about, he could do it. But when he was a young boy, he lived on a farm south of Belcourt. His dad, Peter Turcotte, was a kind of a deacon, I want to say. Like, he was real close with the priest, Catholic priest. And remember, Catholicism was pretty much what it was back then. Now, of course, we have the Episcopalians, Lutherans, Mormons. Everything's up here now. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, it was all about Catholics. So the priest came and got my grandpa, and I don't know why they brought my grandpa. They've got his dad, but he went with them. And they went to this house, and my grandpa said as they were coming, he could hear screaming coming out of the woods. And where they had to go was kind of out on the frozen lake and then drive up to the house. He would never tell me who it was, but I think I got it figured out. But anyway, when he got up to the house, he said it smelled like sulfur, like rotten eggs, like just, and his dad and the priest said, just stay here. And they went inside, they did their thing. They came out. My grandpa was scared shitless, and he said, I know what was going on now, you know. And after a few drinks, he finally told me what happened with that. And there was a lot of things that happened like that up there, you know. And I think that being in a rural community back in the early 1900s going on, I mean, I could see where a lot of that stuff probably did happen. Whereas now we live in cities, we tell everything off now. We're like, oh, he's just insane, but really he could be devil possessed. We don't know. You know, I mean, you know, back in those days, it was very church, God, Satan.
So going to that house, somebody mm-hmm. was possessed in the house, and they had to do an exorcism.
It was a little girl that was around my grandpa's age, and I asked him who it was. He goes, I won't tell you who it is. And I kind of kept on him, like off and on, just to see if I could catch him. And we were at a big dance up in St. John, North Dakota. And I asked my grandpa, hey, about that, you know, and he just kind of smiled. And I go, is she here? And he goes, yeah, she's here. And then, like, going through my uncles and stuff like that, they kind of pointed out who it was. But of course, I'm not going to walk up to her and be like, so
you were
Exorcist, how are you?
You were possessed.
Yeah, you were possessed. Tell me about that. But yeah, I mean, there was stuff like that happened back when my grandpa, you know, the cars were barely even there. It was all horseback carriage. Yeah, there was a lot of weird things that happened up there.
Now, did they have a lot of experiences then with like the Rougarou then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think it was just more of a threat. I mean, I've never seen one. You know, a little person I seen one time, and it wasn't even up there. It was another ceremony we were doing over in Grand Forks one time.
So wait a second, you saw a little person.
Yeah, like a little person right into the fire. When we were in sweat.
Oh, holy moly.
You know, when you go into a sweat lodge and an EP, you're there to pray, cleanse yourself off, pray for the people, pray for your ailments, everything. Pray for people that killed themselves, whatever it is. You're in there to dump it on Creator's lap and let him take it. And as I was sitting in the back of the lodge, I could see out of the door into the fire, and I saw this person right there, and he was looking. And yeah, it was pretty intense, man.
Now, are they?
That's native ceremonies, though. You know. There's a lot of things that happen. I don't know if you've ever been in a sweat lodge, but
I have not. But I've talked to some people, yeah, that have, and it sounds quite. I mean, quite like quite an experience for sure.
Oh, there's way more than that, my friend. Way more that will blow your mind. Sure blew mine. But anyway, the Rougarou really. I mean. There's been little like folklore books written about it. And when Lent comes around, everybody says, watch out for the Rougarou, you know, and I don't really put much stock in it, but you know, and I came from a people like I remember my dad saying, if you run around the house with the dead man's hand, which I think is 2 aces. Yeah.
Aces and eights.
Run around the house 3 times, the devil will show up. That's what we were told. So we were like, is that just for us not to play cards, or does this really happen? And who's going to do it?
Well. Speaking of, you were talking about Deadwood earlier. The Dead Man's Hand comes from, isn't it? Wild Bill Hickok was playing poker and had aces and eights, and somebody shot him.
Yes, and I'll get to that. You'll dig those stories. And I'm trying to find the footage that I had, because everybody I've shown was like, no freaking way. How did that happen? But we'll get into that. Let's see. So fast forward. When I became an agent, it was more of an investigation type thing: homicides, suicides, unattended deaths, rapes, shit like that, major case crimes. I've been into a few suicides that, I've had some strange things happen. Like, somebody blew in my ear one time. I went into the place where this girl had shot herself in the bathroom and laying in there, gun. And as we were standing there, me and another guy, somebody came up and went like that in my ear. I was like, turned and jumped. But that one really bothered me, because we didn't really find out if that was a homicide or a suicide, but it was pretty sketchy. I don't know. When I die, I'll figure it out. But until then, it just is listed as it is, Other friends of mine who were non-native were like, oh man, did you feel that? Did you feel that in the house? And I like, yeah, I felt it. I was just waiting to see if you felt it.
So everybody that went into that one felt something.
I really think it attached. I think we have a lot of attachments, because, man, there's just a lot of things that went on that we couldn't explain. But the only way we talk about it is if we had a few beers and could sit around with the guys and, okay, it's just us now. Let's talk about this. Even to the fact where I even got the guys that I worked with to come to a couple sweats with me and, smudge things off and keep things pure, but there was a lot of those. I'll probably write a book on that someday. So, but,
I will buy it. I will definitely buy it and read it. I will tell you.
Oh, cool, man. I'm in another book if you want to do that, but yeah. So anyway, I went through my years as a cop. I basically I don't know, I call it retired out, but I basically was done in 2015. I had a pretty good run. But we go to Deadwood a lot. That's kind of our fun place to go. And there's a guy there named Ron, God bless his heart. He goes into the bodega every day at 4:00 to have a whiskey. So if you ever want to learn about Deadwood and you're there, be there, and you can buy him a drink and he'll tell you everything. That guy used to be, when he was young, when they had prostitution there, he would bring the newspapers up to the prostitutes and make money when he was a kid. And he was the one that got to watch prostitutes freak out and jump out of windows, and people shot and people thrown out of different areas, the brothels.
No wonder he's getting a whiskey every day at 4:00.
Oh, and he gave us the history that nobody could. I mean, if you wanted to do a show on that, he's the guy I would take you to, because you would just be like, no way. He'll tell you everything about that place, where they used to. Actually, it's built on top of a town that he burnt. So anyway, there was the old part of town and the new part of Deadwood, and they've done a lot with it. It's a cool place. But I was, again, watching stupid Ghost Adventure shows, and they were in Deadwood, and they met this big tall guy that was there. Long story short, they didn't get along with him. He didn't like them, and they were in this place called the Bullock. Well, if you go into any of those hotels, you can write down your experiences. Some people got photos. Some people, showed the ghost that's in there. So we talked to him a little bit. And I asked him, I said, well, how's Zach? And he's like, he's kind of a dick. I didn't really like him. And I was like, okay, cool. But I got another friend that met him, and he was like, totally cool. So who knows? Anyway, long story short, we talked to him, and he goes, this is a spot that they did their investigation. I was like, okay, well, they do ghost tours there, but we didn't want to do it. So they do it from like 8 to 10, but we wanted to do ours at midnight. So my wife and I and this lady took us down in the bottom of the Bullock, and now it's all redone into a new bar, but everything was original. There were dynamite boxes down there. I mean, it looked like you could walk right into a saloon, and that's what it was like. And as we were down there, my wife sat down, and there was a huge mirror in there. And I was walking around with this lady, and I caught this coin flip across my face. Caught it right on camera, like it just went. Didn't see it. Didn't see it till I ran it back because it was pretty dark down there. At that time, I asked my wife, "Are you okay?" And she didn't answer me. And I thought, "Oh, I'll take a picture of her." And I snapped the picture, and she's just sitting there looking in the mirror. But when you look in the back of that mirror, there's all kinds of shapes of people that are in that mirror. And I've been trying to find all these all day. But the lady that was with us was like, "Yeah, this is what happens, you know." Shadow people, tons of them. It's weird. That basement was really weird. It was haunted. And it was right in the middle of Seth Bullock's hotel, the real one. Now it's all redone down there. The other part up on the top of the hill, I can't remember the name of that one, and I always get it wrong, but it looks like the White House up there on the south end of Deadwood. We stayed on the floor one night. We got back about 4:00 in the morning, and it sounded like somebody picked up a book and threw it at the wall, right where our heads were. Boom! I was like, "Well, what the hell was that?" My wife woke me up. I don't know. Boom! It hit again. I was like, "Sounds like somebody's fighting or throwing something." Boom! It happened again. And I said, "That's it. If it happens one more time, I'm going to get up and go take care of business." Didn't happen again. So we just kind of went back to sleep. And the next day I got up, and there was a cleaning lady way at the end of the hall. And I went down there and I said, "Hey, this room that was next to us, what the hell was going on there?" She goes, "There's nobody on this floor. You guys are the only ones on this floor." So I went downstairs and told the management, and other people were checking in. Shit, I had a whole story I was telling these people about. This is what happened. I'm like, I hope you guys get the same experience I do. It was pretty awesome. It's pretty scary, but that hotel still had the old showers with the wraparound. I mean, it was all, there's probably hundreds of people that died in that hotel through the years. Who knows? But, yeah.
That would have been a little unnerving if you'd have got up and gone to that room right then, and there was nobody in there.
Yeah.
That would have been...
I don't know what I would have done. I don't know, man.
I mean, probably the best thing you did was just go back to sleep and be like, okay, they stopped it.
Yeah, we had enough beer at that time. That was a long time ago. But yeah, that's kind of, Deadwood's always got something new. And we always like going in the off season where it's not really expensive. And, it's a lot quieter if you want to do that. So. Oh, I was telling you about Coghlan Castle.
Okay.
So that's in St. John, North Dakota. There was a rich guy that came across from Germany, something like that. You can read the history on it. It's on there. But that castle's been up there for years. It even caught on fire, and it's on this guy's private land. But if you're cool with him, he'll let you go in there. We've caught numerous EVPs. And again, in some of the other things that I've done, we caught EVPs. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It just freaked my wife out. Like, we'd be laying back at home, and I'd say, "Okay, now it's quiet. Let's listen to it." And there were things that were on there that scared the shit out of us. It was saying things like, "Did you see that?" Or "They're right here." But it'd be real quiet, and all of a sudden you would hear that, and I'd be like, "What did you hear?" And she would say it, and I'd be like, "That's what I heard." And yeah, we caught some good EVPs in there. And then that one picture that I took, I couldn't remember if it was a paper hung up there, but the one below it, the one on top was there. The one on the bottom wasn't. And I just happened to see the corner of my eye like a shadow person. And I just whipped around and hit my phone real quick like that because it startled me. And it's a pretty blurry picture, but yeah, you could see things like upstairs, like if somebody moved in front of the light, and then it would calm down. Then you'd hear dunk, 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 like who's walking up there? Are those birds? I don't know, but he used to throw some raging parties there. People used to dance there. I mean, it was pretty incredible. It's got a heck of a history to it. Yeah.
It sounds like it's a big stone place.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
probably got a lot of energy, positive or negative, still within that stone, that limestone.
That limestone and sandstone. One of the problems is right now, after the years of being 100 below zero and then 100 above, going through that in North Dakota, it's kind of broke that place down. They tried to do some fixing on it.
Mm.
Because it is like a national register where it's like an old place they want to preserve. So,
Historical.
but yeah, that's
Now,
always open too.
now I want to ask you about so the ZVPs you call it like that, where it almost sounds like you're intruding in a, for lack of a better term, a dimension in which you're the ghost and they're the real people. Like when I
Sure.
hear that stuff, I often wonder, like, do the ghosts, what we call ghosts, view us as like ghosts? And if they're going, oh my, they're right here, they're right here. Do you
Right.
see that? Like, and you wonder, like, is that a spot where you can kind of slip in between realities, I guess, or slip in between and is there, so that's what I think. How is that viewed upon from like the Chippewa, like the native, like is that how they would view that or not?
I think in the whole native culture of everything, they don't really like us doing ghost hunts. I've even known people that have tornado chased, and they were told to stop by elders. Just
Really?
don't chase tornadoes. Stay away from that stuff. Um, I don't know. I wasn't really brought up with the ways. I was brought along in those ways, and it was just a way. It's not the way. I'm very much a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as my savior. But is there Indian stuff that absolutely Native American? Absolutely. Um, I have cousins that live in Hoopaw, California. Okay. That's pretty much where I think Bigfoot originated from. The big scenes that were on there were by Redding and all those different places right through there and
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. But they've always told me, the natives said, that it's a spiritual thing. They'll never catch Bigfoot. It's a spiritual thing.
Really?
And then one of my good friends here works with that spirit. And as we were doing a ceremony late at night by ourselves, there was boom, 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 boom on the side of my house. And they're like, he's here. And so, I mean, there's people that work with that, but I really believe it's a spirit. I don't believe it's some big hairy animal running around out there. It's not that. I don't believe that. I think it's a spirit. Absolutely.
So would sometimes though, would it present itself in a way that people would see it as a physical thing?
Yes.
I mean, because the ghost stuff, like, I've seen a ghost, and if I hadn't asked the questions about where did that person go, and the people they're going, there's nobody here. I mean, I thought I saw a person. I thought I saw a flesh
Yeah.
and blood person,
Oh, yeah.
and so I think that you know it could be, it could make a lot of sense where if you think Bigfoot's a more spiritual thing, that some people do experience them in a real physical form,
Yeah.
and it might just be the person too,
That's fine. Yeah.
and how they
Mhm.
because the same thing
Yeah.
goes, let's say, I mean, we kind of think the same thing with like the dog man stuff. Like you
Right.
guys are saying Rougarou, we call dog man or whatever. And we kind of think it's more spiritual than anything.
Just
And
like a
that,
skinwalker or a shapeshifter, or I believe that's really spiritual. And I believe it. I believe that there's that evilness that's out there. And I believe there's good too, you know? I've always,
there has to be,
right.
there has to be good to match that
Absolutely. Or
evil.
we'd be just tormented constantly, and then kind of we are in a way, but, but I've always told people that have ghost hunted with me, it's not the living or it's not the dead you have to fear, it's the living you got to fear. The dead isn't going to hurt you. And if you do things and pray right and smudge yourself and do what you're supposed to do, you'll be okay, you know? really nothing in life's to be feared. It's only to be understood, is the way I look at it. You know, I used to get kind of freaked out and shit. You know, now I'm an older guy. I'm like, let's go do it. You know. So my buddy in college here in Newtown wanted to do a paper on ghost hunting, and he's like, I know you know a little bit about it, and I was like, yeah, I know a little bit. Let's go do it. So what's the electric thing that goes with the pulses of energy?
Oh, oh gosh, it's
EVP, EVPM, something like that.
yeah. But it's terrible.
Electromagnetic something.
Yeah.
He bought all this shit anyway, and he's like, "We're going ghost hunting," and I said, "Well, I think what we should do is just carry our voice recorders, you know." And I wasn't using my phone then; I was using all actual digital recorders. And I know it's around here somewhere. I got to find it. But anyway, we went out to a spot, and this is very interesting. Do you remember the Son of Sam?
Yeah.
In the 70s, where the guy was
Sam
Berkowitz?
It was Sam Berkowitz.
Berkowitz.
Sam right? No, Sam Berkowitz. He was a mailman. Yeah. He was a mailman. Yeah. Son of Sam. Yeah. Right? Because the Zodiac was in San Francisco. Son of Sam was in New York. Yeah.
Right. And they caught Sam. They just didn't catch the Zodiac.
Yes, that's right.
And he's probably dead anyway. But the one thing that was happening when the Son of Sam was going on is that, and this is kind of underground, but people know this. In Minot, North Dakota, which is only about an hour and 20 minutes away from us, there's an Air Force base up there. It's been there forever. I've had uncles that have been in the Air Force up there. And there was a satanic cult at that time that was going on in Minot, and the Air Force base was connected to it. Well, on top of that, there was a cemetery that's over by Stanley, North Dakota, which is only 45 minutes away from me. And my buddy was doing the research, and I said, are you shitting me? Let's look at this. And sure enough, there it was. This the cemetery over there, and I can't remember. I want to say it's Taurus, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, for his paper, we took our ghost hunting equipment, and we went out. It was a still night, but it was very cold. One of the things that happened in that little town, and it's only like 50 people, and then the cemetery, is there was a church there, and it burned down. The only thing that was left was the mantle of the fireplace, which is still there today. If you go there, there's rocks on there, coins. You know how people do that all the time. First we went, I'll get back to that. First we went to the cemetery, old cemetery. And I'm talking most of the graves back here in North Dakota are old, man. It goes way back. I took out my recorder. He took out his. Really didn't get anything. But when we were standing there, there were two wisps that went by this grave, and it actually looked like just a wisp, like you see that plasma, and you know, like you see those things. Mm-hmm. And it went by this grave. We went over there, and it was like a little kid's grave. And so we were trying to talk there and stuff, and really wasn't getting much. There's some eerie things over there. We were being real quiet, and you know, we'd be talking about things, and then all of a sudden, like there was a dog like 50 yards from us we didn't even see until it started barking at us. I was like, oh, what the hell was that? But yeah, that was kind of weird. And then we went into the town, which, like I said, it's just one block. And we went up to that church mantle that was left. And he walked off looking around, and I said, I'm just going to do this here by this mantle. So I started asking him questions. And I could see the light. I could see something was going through. And so we got into my truck at the end of the night, wrapped it up, and we were listening to it on the way home. And, you know, I don't remember all the questions I asked. But the one thing that really, really kind of freaked me out a little bit was clearly it was a long, drawn-out Satan. Just like if you were to be like, yeah, check this out, it's Satan. And you could hear it perfect. And there were other little voices that were on there. He took them on, put them on their disc, did all this stuff, freaked us out. Then he said the next week, he's like, hey, I'm doing this presentation at the college. Holy shit, man, everybody was there. It was all packed out and asking us questions and wanting to jump in with us. But he got an A for that. But some of the stuff we had, he couldn't explain how he didn't catch it. There were some other things that happened that he couldn't catch. So we're not going to sit there and try to sell it. I'll tell you about it, but it's how do I prove it? You know.
So I want to go back and ask though. So the military or the Air Force base was tied into satanic rituals?
Something like that. Something like that. And they did it at that cemetery. I guess I should have been more clear, but yeah. And then there's all of a sudden this burnt church. Now, I don't know when the church burned down. That could just be a coinkydink. But, I mean, it's you don't see churches burn too often. You know?
Not really.
Unless you live in the black metal land of Finland and they all want to burn the church, you know, but I mean, here now it's not like that at all. But yeah, I mean, it was all tied in. I started looking into it. Son of Sam, why not North Dakota? Satanism was involved, and this was in the 70s.
So really, it was the connection to Son of Sam. Is it was just at the same time?
Maybe,
or do they
were
think
all tied in together?
Holy smokes!
Right, but it's known. It's known, man. I'm telling you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've
and
never.
Of course, me being a cop, I got a lot of stuff I could look into if I needed to, you know. So that always backed up a lot of stuff too. So, but yeah, that's the research he did. I looked into it. It was like, wow, I don't know what the hell they're doing out here at this cemetery out in the middle of nowhere. But then I thought, well, that's because it's out in the middle of nowhere. You know, who's gonna hassle you? Go ahead, burn the church down. What the hell, you know? Crazy.
Yeah, well, that is kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. And then to hear that clearly say Satan, and you already know the other stuff, it kind of yes, that would.
This was about 8 years ago, and I still have people that come up and do that to me. Then I start laughing. I'm like, yeah. Hey, are you guys doing any ghost hunts? You know. Now, here's something that's kind of cool. We have a college here in town that is known for having a lot of historic items that are in there, evolved around the tribe. I wanted to go ghost hunted because my buddy, that if we do this again, I'll have my bro BJ come on with me because he's very much into what we do. Basically, what was I just talking about now? Jeez, I lost my mind.
Oh, the college.
Oh, the college. So anyway, I have heard from everybody that's worked there for the last 12 years that place is haunted. And I'm like, why is it haunted? Well, my wife was a librarian. She would hear voices in there. Some of the historical stuff was back in the library stuff. People in the hallways, people don't like going in there at night. They won't go in there at night. They do have cameras in there. I don't know if anybody's ever caught anything or ever looked, but they really believe it's haunted. So I put out there that we really want to go ghost hunt this place, me and a couple cops. And the board of the college said, nope, we're not letting you in there. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. What are you guys hiding? You think it's haunted? You got people that are scared in there. At least let us go in and have a chance to see what's going on, you know, but they won't budge on that. I don't know if they just don't want the negative publicity or I don't know. Nowadays, who cares? Everybody loves that shit, you know?
That's it. That's very interesting.
I know, but you know, there's a lot of people that are still that old school ignorant, you know, they're not up with the times, like, oh, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. You know.
Well, you think they would want maybe just some answers based on their employees having,
Absolutely. I would think as a board member, I would go with the team to see what's going on in my school. You know. We had another report that the elementary here in town was haunted too, but we were going to try to set that up and go do a ghost hunt, but I'm kind of leaving that up to Ghost Patrol, my buddy Ori. So see if we can get in there and do some hunting, but we got some stuff lined up that's going to be pretty interesting, you know?
No, I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what you guys go out and find. So,
yeah.
So I want to ask, because boy, we've gone a long time now. So I want to ask one thing here before we jump off.
Sure.
I want to go back to the little people because every story I hear, because you hear stories about little people all over. Like in Florida, I've heard some stuff, and they're always portrayed as tricksters.
Uh-huh.
And so now, are they thought of as a real life flesh and blood tribe of small people that just live out there, or are they all spiritual? It just
No, as I'm going, I'm remembering stories that happened to me. Um, they're very much tricksters. It's said if you make fun of them or you do things, that they'll come in your house and steal jewelry and put it somewhere. They'll steal things from you. Tricksters, like you said, absolutely. But the one time at my house, when I first got here, there were two cops and assistant CEO of the tribe and me. And we were having some beers, we were hanging out. And one of the cops was from down south, like down in Georgia or someplace. And we're talking about the little people, that this, where I live, is the land of the little people, is what they were saying, is what the other two guys were saying. The one guy from down south said, I don't like them little fuckers. Them little fuckers play tricks on me down there. Them fucking cocksuckers, blah, blah, blah. Just going off, right? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. When we talk about this, we shouldn't really be talking about it when we're drinking, but you really shouldn't be trying to test them like that. Here's what happened. I had a screen door in my back on my sliding door. My kitchen is right there going out. The screen you really had to grab and pull. You see where this is going. And it was like off its track, but you had to pull it. That sucker slammed like somebody just went wham, and that was it. And I looked at him and I go, I guess that's the end of us talking about little people. That's done. And it did. It freaked us all out, man. There were two cops, the assistant CEO, and me. Yeah.
and see that's not like you can't chalk that up to a coincidence.
No.
Okay, that's not a coincidence.
No,
That's
it wasn't wind. No. No.
Holy smokes! Holy
But then,
smokes!
I don't know, maybe we can do another one. I was talking about a lot of the ceremonies that we do. I can tell you about them. I'm not going to go into how we do them, but I'll tell you what it can happen. So, I mean, maybe we could do that another time if you
Yes,
want.
I would love. I would love to. I'd love to do a whole episode on just talking about that, talking about the ceremonies and stuff. Because
Oh, yeah.
I do think our listeners would love to hear about that. I do
Yeah,
think they would.
absolutely.
I do think they
And,
would.
I'll try to get a lot more Native people involved in this and get to know you because, I'm, like you said, I'm still an infant. I still like to hear people's experiences. I'm
Mhm.
like you, man. I'm not a know-it-all at all. I'm just sharing my experience of what I've seen. And there's a lot more. I'll probably think of 50 things tonight while I'm laying in bed, but I
Well,
do remember on the funny side that when I was an agent, we used to watch autopsies all the time. We had to be there to watch an autopsy. And like we've watched hundreds of them. And down in what we do with the new guy was there's a cold storage in there, like a walk-in cooler. And there would always be bodies in there. So we take the new guy and throw him in and shut the door and turn the light off.
oh, jeez,
And yeah,
that's
yeah,
awful. That is
yeah.
awful.
Yeah. And then we'd open it up and they'd see all the saws and everything. And I remember one of the first autopsies I went to, this guy was cutting off the front of the rib cage and all that. Now they use pruners. Now that's a lot easier, but you can use a saw. But you got to remember, a saw throws shit everywhere. So this must have been a new guy, and he was sawing away on this guy's chest. And he must have hit a blood pocket, man, because it looked like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, dude.
Oh my
It was
God.
just, oh, boom, blood all over him. And he looks at me all serious and he goes, is there blood all over me? Yeah, dude, there's blood all over you. I mean, just dripping like he just chainsawed somebody. But I got to where, working with the bodies, I would gown up and take their organs and I would weigh them and put their weight on the wetboard. When I went to the crime scene unit in Miami-Dade, I rode with them 2 weeks, and the real hot shot medical shows on TV, they were all down there there was like 6 autopsies going at one time, man. It was just like head on a swivel, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's a baby, there's a Jamaican, there's this, it was crazy, man. Crazy. And they're all lined up out into the hallway. But what really freaked me out, and they took us to this Quonset. Okay. And it's probably, I don't know, maybe half a block tall and wide, just a metal building with a lot of freezers. And all of the bodies that have come into Miami-Dade that they couldn't identify, they just basically take a DNA swab and throw them in the freezer. So you got a lot of what they call, and this is what they call them, wandos. There's a lot of people that probably came from Mexico, no family, drowned out in the ocean trying to get here, no family claiming them. So, and it's full, man. It's freaking racks like Sam's Club, full of bodies. You walk in there, man, that's twitchy. That's pretty crazy, man.
Now, that sounds like a place to maybe do a ghost investigation.
I know people. Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Oh, man. Well, CJ, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all the stuff that you shared. I mean, look, you're a lot braver than me. I'll just say that without even hesitation. But no, man, I appreciate you sharing these stories and some of the history from your family and from the area there.
Yeah, we could go on with more sometime. I feel like I kind of jumped around a little bit, but you get me excited thinking about things. And
That's okay.
You weren't really there, so I got to be like, okay. Yeah.
That's okay. That's cool. Hey, that's okay. But yeah, we'll set something up because I do definitely want to come back, and I think that would be a really cool bonus episode to do, just an episode to put out there for everybody to listen and I think maybe people might hear this and have questions even too. They might ask some questions. So, But no, man, I appreciate it so much, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Thank you for having me on. It was fun. We will be out, this off the record, but we're going to be out in Portland at Christmas time. So, never know. Maybe come by and say hi or something. Go have a coffee.
Definitely.
All right, man.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only knows what's hiding